Good morning, Grinders. Welcome to the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, aka Blender Ed, Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter, and it's Friday, December 9th. And you know what we do on Fridays? We fight on Fridays. We fight a little bit. We talk about fighting, right? We could fight if you want. If you want to fight in the YouTube chat, feel free to fight in the YouTube chat. Give me those thumbs up before you do it. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. Punch it. Punch the like button. Punch it. Kick it. Do a spinning back fist or whatever other fighting technique. Do it like there's a little elbow, a little cage control. Take the like button down, right? Give it a calf slicer. I don't know. Do whatever the hell you want with it. But good morning, Wataz Kickstart in the YouTube chat. We'll be talking about UFC 282 card for tomorrow. It's a 5:30 start time, 5:30 lock time. I think maybe they move it to 6. I mean, it's 13 fights, not 14 fights. I don't know, but it's still 5:30 as of now. Not that great of a card, really, for a pay-per-view card. I mean, obviously, Prochazka Teixeira was taken off the card because Prochazka's injured or whatever. So, I mean, maybe they wanted it to be a better card than it was. There should be a lot of finishes, though. Okay, although there's some questionable fighters on the slate. A lot of high variance fights, and that's what I like for GPPs. High variance. I don't like low variance decision fest type fights, but there are a lot of fights to target. So on this card, I'm going to be playing 8 lineups. I'm doing more of the small field stuff, more of the late swappy things. And I'm going to be targeting primarily fights over, in the beginning at least, over specific fighters necessarily. Now, as the slate goes on, I may be switching to lower variance fighters. So, I think identifying which fights are high variance and which fights are lower variance. I mean, it's MMA. It's still high variance regardless. Will determine the path. I bring up fightodds.io. So show you the order of the fights, right? So we have the same in Kozlov. We have a lot of questionable fights early. I mean, with people with less UFC experience, and actually the lower variance fights are actually later. So most likely, I'm going to be taking shots on a lot of the earlier fights, a lot of the prelim stuff. And if I get a big score, then I could start building my lineups, to benefit from that. And then if I get a loss, then I know which fights to switch to. Okay? So if you got any questions about the UFC card, feel free to post them in the YouTube chat. I see you guys here in the morning. Good morning. I also got the Ground and Pound podcast that should be coming out today. Liam, Mike, and myself, we recorded yesterday. Broke down all the fights on the card. You could get that if you're a RotoGrinders premium member. Get the core premium package. You get everything, right? MMA, you get NBA, you get NFL, you get PGA, you get everything. So click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month. Popular fighters on the slate, I think. I mean, from you have the main event is Ankalaev, Blachowicz. I'm gonna at least be starting out my 8 lineups with none of the main event. Okay, it's a pay-per-view card that only has 1 5-round fight. A lot of times these pay-per-view cards have 2 5-round fights, 2 championship fights. But obviously, because one was scrapped, we only have 1. I think it'll be overowned. Ankalaev tends to be a much more patient fighter. I think Ankalaev beats Blachowicz, but at 9,200, does he pay off the salary? If he goes to the wrestling, maybe. But I mean, I think a lot of guys can score 100 plus on this slate, and at 9,200, I'm not sure if the main event is necessary, right? And it's probably going to be overowned, right? We have Ankalaev at 39-40% owned, Blachowicz at about 20-22, so that's 60-ish% of lineups. From a low variance scenario, I like Ankalaev. He's a low variance fighter, but I think some of these other guys up here. But you're going to have to trust some of the people up here. I mean, most of the biggest favorites on the slate have limited UFC experience. Okay? Limited. Or are their experience in the UFC is shaky. Like Edmund Shabazian. Right? He's only been really facing like the top of the division. But, after the first round, he can fall apart easily. Okay, and then you got Saman making his UFC debut. We got Rosas, who only has I think one fight, right? He's an 18-year-old kid. Paddy Pimblett is technically new. He's only had, I think, 3 fights in the UFC. Vinicius Salvador is making his debut against Da Silva, who's lost 3 straight. So it's like it's a lot of question marks on the top end. But the fight should be high scoring, should be high variance. So we take a look at the fights here on fightodds.io, and like Saman Kozlo, like that's a high variance fight. I mean, I don't even think Kozlo is UFC caliber at all. Saman could easily destroy him. He's like the biggest favorite on the slate now, like -400, -365 in places. But remember, you're trusting someone that has never fought in the UFC before. But he's also facing a late replacement of someone that has no business even coming close to the UFC. He's 6-0, but he's beaten like firemen. He's beaten plumbers, right? His 6-0 record against people that I think 2 of his opponents literally had no experience in MMA. Like that was their first fight ever. So I don't know what you can go by that. Then you have Salvador versus Da Silva. This is unlikely to even go back past the first round. Da Silva, like, I don't think it's in his 3 UFC fights, and even in his regional stuff, like he did like past like 6-7 minutes, like he's never had a fight past 6 or 7 minutes. And Salvador is wild also. So like I'll be taking a lot of shots on Saman, on Salvador, some on Da Silva, and then we get into now Eric Silva versus TJ Brown. Okay, I think that's one of the lower variance fights. Although I don't trust either of these guys either. Right? I mean, Eric Silva is making his debut at 35 years old, and TJ Brown he could wrestle, but he also doesn't have the best fight IQ. Then Carantillo Hernandez, I think Carantillo is going to be very popular. Volume striker. He wrestles a bunch. Also, he just knows how to rack up DraftKings scoring. But Alexander Hernandez could, I mean, he's probably going to be dangerous in the first round. But I think at 8,600 Carantillo, for low variance purposes, I would look to play him. Then you have like Curtis Buckley, who's, I mean, this is basically a stand-up fight, and if there's a knockout, someone could score. If there's not, it's probably in a decision, someone scores 70 points and not much. So this Curtis Buckley is kind of the fight where, I already have a loss. Let me start switching over to Curtis at 7,700, right? He's 7,700, right? I view him as like what Angela Hill was last week. Like, okay, I got a loss. Let me plug in, what underdog is a good shot at least going to decision? Okay, Chris Curtis, right? I could say the same for this Topuria Mitchell fight. The Topuria Mitchell fight is going to be very popular. Yet it's like the second most likely to go to decision. On another card, it would be like middle of the pack, but on this card, I mean, outside of Morono, I think the Morono-Ponzinibbio fight, it's the most likely. If we take a look at the ITD lines, Topuria is plus 195, Mitchell plus 350. Right? Ponzinibbio is plus 200, Morono is plus 485. That's the fight most likely to go to decision, is the Morono-Ponzinibbio fight. So the Topuria Mitchell fight most likely goes to decision, and I think this is an even enough matchup that I'm not sure if the winner scores well. To me, the only way the winner of this fight scores well if there's a finish, an earlier finish. So I will be under the field on Topuria Mitchell, but I reserve the right to switch to either of them to rescue min cashes if I get a loss, because that's much later in the card, right? Shabazian, Dalcha, Lugiambula, that should be a high variance fight. I mean, Edmund Shabazian should take care of Dalcha, but Shabazian, he falls apart. And is Dalcha the one to capitalize on that? I don't know. But he's a physical guy, right? So you never know. So, but Dalcha is the cheapest fighter on the slate, and I don't mind. I don't even mind playing him. I played Dalcha over Kozlov. So at least Dalcha has UFC experience. I mean, he's only had 2 wins in the UFC, and they're against horrible people. But at least he has UFC experience. Then we have Perrin Rosas Jr. and the 18-year-old kid Raul Rosas Jr. is probably going to basically go for takedowns and go for submissions. I don't know how many takedowns that he's going to get. I don't think he's not chaining together stuff. It's going to be basically take him down and try to submit him. Probably not as much ground and pound. I don't mind playing some Rosas Jr., but I mean, I prefer Salvador. I prefer Saman over him. I even prefer Shabazian over him because Shabazian could just, I mean, completely destroy Dalcha. Could. I think Rosas Jr., it's not a matter of like, oh, he's going to get 8 takedowns. It's going to be 1 takedown. Then Perrin's going to be on the ground for 3.5 minutes defending submissions. It's not going to be to move over to mount and then ground and pound. I think Rosas is just going to look basically, you're not going to get many, you're going to get control points. But like in his last fight, 3 rounds, Rosas like had 22 strikes. That's it, 22. So his ceiling is much lower than maybe the field would think. Although I still think he's one of the upper end targets on the slate. Then we have Dawkins Rosenstruck. That's totally high variance. The winner of this fight is going to score 5. The loser is going to score 5. The winner is going to score 95. Right? It's basically knockout or bust on both sides. I mean, it's the most likely to end inside the distance. Rosenstruck's minus 125 ITD. Dawkins is plus 200 ITD. So for GPPs, sure, yeah, I like this, but this would not be a low variance fight that I switch to. But I'm not a big fan of playing slow heavyweights anyway, because once it hits the second round, it's hard for either of them to score 100 points. So I'll probably be under on Rosenstruck and Dawkins also. Then what we got next? Mitchell Topuria had talked about Duplessis versus Till. That's another low variance fight. I think I'd prefer the underdog. I think Till's going to be much lower owned than some of the other dogs, but can he score 100 points? I mean, he's basically need a first round knockout. But can he win a decision if this is a competitive stand-up fight? Yeah, I guess so. Makes me not really want to play. I'm not going to have any lineups with Duplessis in it. He's plus 125 inside the distance. Till is plus 335 inside the distance, but the line is actually much closer. Minus 175 money line for Duplessis, plus 155 for Till. Like 8,800, 7,400, that gap is pretty wide for a fight that's not much more than 3-2, barely 2-1. So I think I mean, I don't think Till doesn't have that much of a ceiling, but hey, one punch, you never know. I don't mind playing Till. Like if you need like I need to lock in, safe points, low variance. I think Duplessis Till is one of those types of fights. The same thing for Ponzinibbio Morono. I don't see a finish there either. And I'd much rather play Morono at 7,500. So it's like Till and Morono are those okay, I got to let me plug in maybe 45 points plus hopefully a decision win. And maybe get 75 in there. And then we got and we talked about the main event, and then the Pimblett-Gordon fight. Pimblett's going to be very popular, as he always is. He's going to lose at some point. He has too many flaws. Is Jared Gordon the one to do it? Probably not. But in Jared Gordon wins, he puts up a lot of points. Okay? Jared Gordon can take Paddy Pimblett down. He can. But if he can't, he's a sitting duck. He's dead. So I'm not playing any Paddy in my 8 lineups. Obviously, with late swap, everything could change. Like I'm more likely to play Paddy in a lineup where I already have 4 wins and I'm looking to win first place type of thing. But the favorites that I'm looking at the most, and you can see on my sheet even how they're all rated out based on our current projected ownership, our current median projection. I put a little optionality rating depending on, when the fight is on the card. But I'm looking to play Saman, Salvador, Rosas, Shabazian. Then in the mid-range, Joaquin Buckley, I guess, over Chris Curtis. I mean, I don't like the mid range. I prefer doing the up and down builds. That one of the my hot take on the expert survey is that two fighters. Did I say one fighter? I don't know if I said one or two. I think two underneath 7,500 are in the optimal lineup. Two. So that's between Till, De Silva, Perrin, Gordon, Blachowicz, Kozlov, and Dalcha, Luigi and Bula. Like, even though I'm going to be playing Salvador, I still think I'll be playing De Silva in a lineup or two. I'll play Jared Gordon. Jay Perrin's going to pretty much need to knock out Roses. Because I don't see how he scores that many points even in a decision. It has to stay on its feet and he has to not get taken down. Because once he gets taken down and he's controlled on the ground for 4 minutes, he's not scoring any points. So it's hard for him. It's hard for him to hit a ceiling score in this specific matchup, unless he obviously just goes out and 30 seconds in just knocks them out. But Perrin's plus 525. He has the highest ITD on the entire slate. So I don't know. I think it's more like Till, De Silva, Gordon, Dalcha, Luigi, and Bula. I'm not sure about Blachowicz. I think he's going to be overowned. I think Kozlov is a jiu-jitsu and he could get you down and whatever. He was facing people that had no MMA experience. Okay? It's not hard if you're a BJJ, any type of credentialed BJJ person, to bum rush someone, get him to the ground, and then submit him. Like against someone that should not be in an MMA fight. So I'm going on the auspices that Kozlov is like strength of schedule is non-existent. But yes, I guess in a win, if he does get an early submission, he can score 100 points. But I think it's more likely that Cameron Saman just destroys him. That's at least my opinion. DFIC asks, what sites are good to look at for relevant fight histories for each fighter? I guess, what is it, Tapology? I assume Tapology. I mean, I don't look at that, but I guess you can, right? Doesn't Tapology have everything? Doesn't they have all the everything of? I mean, I don't know. I don't use this site that much. You go to any fighter or something. Cage match that's for wrestling. But yeah, I guess so. Here's some ads. I think it shows you all the stats of all the previous fights that they have it for, that they have something, that they have. Obviously, I think they'll show the fight history, but I don't know about the stats of the fights. We have to go and actually find them on YouTube and watch them or something. But I don't care about that. I mean, to me, everything is baked into the lines. Everything you see on this spreadsheet in front of you, that's all I use. Right? Now, obviously, someone like Liam, who's on the Ground and Pound podcast, supplies a lot of context to the lines of like, there's a difference between a guy with, he's minus whatever to inside the distance, but I don't know what style. How does he win? What's the method of victory? Because that's all incorporated into the scoring. That's why, I have a ceiling score proxy here, as well as a median score here, to kind of make up for the grapplers have much higher ceilings on DraftKings than the strikers. So someone like Darren Till has a very low ceiling proxy because he doesn't wrestle. He doesn't do anything. I mean, and he's horrible on the ground. So his path to scoring is basically just striking volume, as opposed to takedowns and control time and ground strikes and stuff like that. So obviously on DraftKings, the ceiling scores typically favor the grapplers. And that's why, someone like Salvador, someone like Rosas, guys that can land takedowns. We have a lot of guys on the slate that can land takedowns. Like Ankalaev could land takedowns, but I think Ankalaev could beat Blachowicz even without stand-up. Ankalaev may not even care that much about even taking anyone. I mean, I think Ankalaev, very smart fighter. But just because you're a smart fighter doesn't mean that's good for DFS. Smart fighter meaning that he doesn't have to rush this. I think Ankalaev could just be, third round, And finally, Blachowicz gives out, and Ankalaev ground and pound, takes him down, ground and pound, end of story. I don't think Ankalaev has to work as hard in the first round or two. And he knows that. If you've seen his fights, he's very patient. Yet you have someone like Edmund Shabazian who's not patient at all. Right? Paddy Pimblett ain't patient at all. Jairzinho Rosenstrike, he's too patient sometimes. Right? People are going to play Rosenstrike at minus 125 inside the distance. Yes. He can knock you out in one punch. Absolutely. The problem is a lot of times he just stares at you for an entire round. Like, dude, like you got 5 minutes. Like this Rosenstruck Dawkins fight, you got 5 minutes you got 5 minutes for a ceiling. If you don't get in the first round, you're dead. You're dead. And 32% of the field is going to play Rosenstruck. Good. Let him. You could go the entire first round while only attempting 4 strikes. I mean, like he's that low volume. Because he's a counter striker. So if Chris Dawkins doesn't engage as much, he's just going to stare at you. And then he'll wait for the second round. He'll stare at you some more. Hard for him to win decisions that way, but I mean, we don't even care about that. By the time the third round comes around, if they're just staring at each other, doesn't matter who wins. Neither of them are scoring well. Not for DFS purposes. But the builds that I'm going to be doing the most of are up and down builds, are barbell builds. So I think people are going to live more in the mid-range. I think the popular lineup types of combinations will be like one high nine, like a 9K fighter, right? I think, you get something like Patty, 9,100, Salvador at 8,900, Carantillo at 8,600. And then maybe they play Chris Curtis, Bryce Mitchell, like something like this, TJ Brown, like this type of lineup. I see a lot more of these types of lineups. 1 9K fighter, 2 mid-range 8K fighters, and then you don't even have to go down that far on a dog. And if you did, like, I could see people, playing Dawkins against Rosenstruck instead of Curtis or Mitchell or Brown or something. And then, like, you're right. Like, you could move, let's say you move TJ Brown, or you move Bryce Mitchell to Chris Dawkins, and you move TJ Brown, you try to get Tapurier in there, I guess, instead of Carantillo, right? You have 500 left, and instead of playing, right, you can move this around, right? Instead of playing Brown, you play Silva. Instead of playing Patty, or instead of playing Salvador, you have 500 left. You play some Shabazi in there, like something like that. I see these types of lineups where people don't necessarily dip past the $7,500 range. So I think these fighters, 7,400 and below, are going to go under-owned. And I think these fights are high variance enough with fighters that have limited experience or questionable backgrounds or questionable fighting styles. I think 1 or 2 fighters 7,400 or below win. Me personally, I'm going to hope it's Gordon and Till. I don't mind De Silva, but I mean, I'll also be playing Salvador. So I mean, like that's like right early, and then like I'm gonna know early what I need to do. That's the thing about MMA late swap now. I'm gonna know real early. No, I mean it was very similar last week. I had a lot of Rojo and a lot of Valdez, and that was the second and the third fight. And I also had half my lineups with Jaregui, and she was in the first fight. So I know exactly what I'm gonna need to do the rest of the slate. So out of my 8 lineups, I think I'll probably have 4 Saman lineups. And I think I'm going to have 4 Salvador lineups and 2 De Silva lineups. So I'm going to know, like, right away after the first 2 fights how I should be building the rest of those lineups. This will be pretty easy. Saman and this De Silva Salvador fights are the fights that I'm targeting the most. If we just take a look at just even my rating right now with the RG stuff, I've Saman and Salvador as two of the three highest rated fighters, and better for their salaries than Shabazian. Right? So I have what? Saman first, Salvador 2, Shabazian 3, then Roses 4, then Patty, and then Duplessis and Ponzinibbio, only because of their ownership. Right? That's why I said Ankalaev. I have him as the worst rated 9K fighter on the slate, only due to ownership. You take away the owner. I change his ownership down to whatever. If it's 23%, then he's fine. Right, but I have him at 37. Right, I have Patty at 38. Right, if Patty was 20% owned, yeah, sure, okay, give it to me. It's fine. But at 38% owned, no, I'll play Gordon. I'll play 14% owned Jared Gordon against him. Salvador's going to be pop. I have Salvador as the highest owned fighter on the slate at 40%. And I still have him as under owned. It's minus 175 inside the distance. Let's see, has that even changed? I mean, that's nuts. Minus 175, 64% implied probability inside the distance. Minus 105, 51% round one probability. And he's 8,900. Just from a price standpoint versus the other 9K fighters. Yeah, he's still minus 175. Right? Minus 250 money line. I mean, look, at 8,900, he has as high of a ceiling as Shabazian at 9,400. I mean, I just view the 8,900 plus to this range that they're all. Take a look at all these inside the distance and the win odds. Like they're all kind of the same. They're close enough. Then once you get to 8,800, now everything drops. Now everything drops. So even at 40%, I think he's under-owned. Right? What happens if he was like 50%? And if he was 55%, he'd be like efficiently owned. Right? But at 40%, maybe he comes in at 44, maybe 45. I don't know. People may want to play Pimblett. People like this Raul Rosas Jr. kid. Salvador has no. I mean, you're gonna look at people. Are people gonna click on a name that has no game log? Like he has no game log. There's no log there. There's no nothing. But just from the betting line, he's the highest. He's the highest ceiling on the slate, and you're getting him at a discount in comparison to other fighters. So I listed him in the expert survey as the top overall play on the slate. That doesn't mean it's guaranteed to win. Of course not. The Salvador Da Silva fight, I mean, it'd be crazy fight. Da Silva is just 100% kill or be killed, and he's been killed. And Salvador is pretty much the same. He did very flashy, but he could do takedowns and high volume, like in his Dana White Contender Series match. He was a psychopath. But he could run in and get clocked by Daniel Da Silva and lose. I mean, that can happen. I wouldn't mind having that fight in every one of my lineups, possibly. I don't know. Maybe it ends up happening that way. I take Salvador in 4 and Da Silva, most likely Salvador in 5 and Da Silva in 3. Just my luck. It's going to go to decision, right? 2 fighters that have not seen past the 7th minute of any fight. They go to a decision. That's what's going to happen. But that's pretty much it for a breakdown of UFC 282 card. If you got any questions before we get out of here, feel free to post them in the YouTube chat. Give me those thummy thumbs. You definitely subscribe to RotoGrinders. You'll get our ownership. You'll get our projections for MMA. You'll get our expert survey, our ground and pound podcast. It's like an hour and a half long. Liam also has an article breaking down in his picks for all the fights and everything. You get Lineup HQ to build all your lineups. You get everything. So what are you waiting for? Click on that link in the description. Get $10 off your first month of a combo premium package. It includes NBA and NFL and everything, PGA. You can play everything. World Cup, soccer, You get that also. You get the MMA channel in the RotoGrinders Discord. You get my Blender's Game Theory channel. You could talk to me. So sign up for that. Hit the thumbs up button on your way out the door. We got tons of content coming out today for NFL. Tons. The tournament take show, the solo ship show, other stuff, I guess. I mean, obviously we got NBA Grinders Live later today and Crunch Time, the NBA people. I got my premium game theory show with Tuttle that comes out, later in the afternoon. Re-recorded about 2. Typically comes out around 4 or 5 o'clock. That's only for premium people, though. You got to be premium for the game theory show. So subscribe to that. And I will be back. I'll be back on Monday, right? Answering your DFS strategy questions, right? Talking to James McCool. Seeing what happened on this Sunday with the 10 game. It's not a very good NFL slate, by the way. It isn't. But we'll see what happens. And I'll be back with you. As I always are, I'm always here for you, Monday through Friday. 11 o'clock Eastern on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.